So this is going to be a very quick video to show how you can automatically download weather station data from OpenWeatherMap to a Google Sheet. And then the second part will be showing how you can then get this data into a usable format within Excel. So this is basically an example of the data which we're going to end up with in the Google Sheet. So to explain what it is, it's data parsed in JSON formats, JSON. It's a particular web developed format. And basically within the data structure itself is a bit complex. So it's got main categories and then kind of subcategories. So for example, here we have coordinates. Longitude is a subcategory of coordinates. Latitude is also a subcategory of coordinates. We then have weather. Subcategories are ID, so kind of this is generally used for creating icons. And then kind of a description, so clouds, rain, a more full description, so few clouds, light rain, etc. So you can see it's a bit complicated, and as I said, we'll deal with the data structure and converting it to a usable format after the first step. But the main purpose of this is to show you how you can automatically download weather station data from pretty much anywhere in the world, or at least anywhere where OpenWeatherMap has a weather station committing data to it. So the way that this will work, just kind of as an overview, is the Google Sheet will call an API from OpenWeatherMap.org, which is this website. So this is a site which hosts about 40,000 different weather stations data. So the way that this works is we basically call the API, and so if we hit enter, so it returns data for a particular place at a particular time. So the way we go about doing this, well, first of all, what we need to do is go on to openweathermap.org. Sign up. So once you've signed up, you should have this page, or once you sign in, if you click on API key, so it will have your individual API key here. It's really important that you don't share this with anyone, otherwise you'll find that you'll very quickly get locked out because other people will probably be using your API key. You can change it just by clicking here, or delete it and create a new one. For the purposes of this, I'll be using this API key, but after this tutorial, I'll be deleting it. So yeah, for now we can use this, but basically as soon as this tutorial's done, it won't be usable anymore. Okay, so after you have created an account with openweathermap.org, first thing to do is to create a blank Google Sheet. So here we have our Google Sheets. Create a new blank, and we'll call it weather for, and this really depends whereabouts you are, whereabouts you want your data for. So let's choose Bordeaux weather. Create your file. Next, under Tools, go to Script Editor. Load. Delete everything which exists there. Now, if you navigate to GitHub, then Dr. Chris Chan, Google Sheets OpenWeatherMap. So here, I'll place a link somewhere either within the class or within the comments of this video, etc. So once you're here, there are some instructions for how you go about doing this, but as I'm talking you through it, we won't need to kind of look at this. Click on the OpenWeatherMap.js. It's a JavaScript file, effectively. Copy everything into that Google script. Okay. Now, there are step-by-steps here, so we've already set up a OpenWeatherMap account. Next, we have to edit the longitude and latitude and API key of this command. So let's go back to our API key, which is here. Copy that. And then select your longitude and latitude. So I don't know Bordeaux's longitude and latitude off the top of my head. So yeah, we'll search on Google. You can right click on Google Maps and click what's here. And then click on the coordinates. And then you can copy the coordinates from here. It's a bit easier than doing it other ways. Okay, so latitude, which is our north and south direction, is 44.85, etc. Longitudes minus 0.5. Okay. Then once that's done, so that's step 2 finished. Step 3 down here. We recommend renaming basically everything. So first of all, you want to rename the function. Then rename the project name. So Bordeaux Weather. Rename the file within the project name. So Bordeaux Weather. Okay. And then make sure that that's saved. Next, under Publish, click Deploy as Web App. Deploy. Although where the project needs permission to access your data on Google, obviously that's a good thing, so it can update the sheets. Click on your account. It will say the app's not verified. That's because basically you're creating your own web app, so that's fine. So just make sure you go to Advanced and continue or proceed to the permission page. Next, it's just giving you a bit of information of what it's trying to do. So you're giving it permission to see, create, or edit your spreadsheet and connect to an external service. So both of those are fine and expected. Okay. Then once that's done, you have a prompt here saying the project's now deployed as a web app. You notice as well, after we just granted permission, you should receive an email just letting you know that your security settings have changed. Okay. Next, what we need to do, and again, this is down here, go to script.google.com. On your new weather project, under the ... on the right hand side, click that and click Triggers. Now you want to add a trigger, and we'll make this a time-based trigger. Generally you'll want it to be time-based as opposed to, say, every time you open up the Google spreadsheet, though you can also set that as a trigger. But yeah, so we have a time-based trigger. Select the time period you want, so you can Generally, we recommend having it every kind of 10 or 15 minutes. For most of the weather stations, that seems to be kind of an appropriate balance. If you try and set it to be more frequent than that, then generally the weather stations won't be uploading that much data, so you'll get a lot of repeat value, so it's kind of not worth it. Okay, so we have minute timer. It's going to trigger every 10 minutes. And once you click save, as soon as that's done, your spreadsheet should start recording data. So just give it a minute. Okay, so you can see that the API has been called and we have our first item of data. It's worth pointing out as well, within the script.google, you can actually just click run and you'll see running. Okay, and then it will add another line of data. So do that again just to show. Running. Okay, so third line of data. Just going to delete those because they're repeat bits of data. Okay, so once you have a data set which you desire a certain amount of time, so for example, this one has been running since May of this year, so it's got about 6 months worth of data now. As we mentioned at the very start, JSON data structures are a bit complicated. So really what we want to do is convert it into something which is easy to work with. So to do this, under File, you can download the sheet, except we specifically want to make it a tab separated value sheet. Okay, so we have our file down here. Now, if we open it up, you can see I've already downloaded this before, but yeah, we'll open up the new download. Go to any text editor. So I prefer using Notepad++. Now here, I'll just zoom in a bit so you can see what's going on. So up at the very top, what we want to do is have a squiggly bracket, speech marks, and we'll give our dataset name. So this one is Cardiff weather. Speech marks. Then open colon, and a square bracket. At the very bottom, we want to close off both of those things. So go to the very end, into a new line, square bracket and squiggly bracket. So close it off. We're almost there. So what we have to do is at the start of every line, apart from the first line of data, we have to add in commas to each of them. Now, rather than doing it manually, what we can do is if we copy this coordinates, I'm using, so copy this coordinates. You Control and F for find, replace that coordinates with the same thing except a comma at the start. So replace all. We'll go through all of the data and replace that. Okay, so we've seen we have 59,000 lines of data. Final thing to do is on that very first line of data, delete that comma because there's no data before it. Okay, once you're done with that, make sure that the data is saved. So file save. Now in Excel, open up a blank workbook, and we're ready to import that JSON data. So to do that, up on the top tab under data, click Get Data, from File, and then from JSON. Okay, navigate to where you have your data, down here. And this prompt box should open up. Okay, so once you have this prompt box up, what you want to do is convert the data into a table. So click on that into table button. Okay, now from here on out, every time you see a column with this symbol up at the top, so this kind of splitting symbol, then what you want to do is expand the data or split the column. So expand to new rows. So we have all of our records now. We have that symbol again, so click it. And then it will expand all the columns. So what this is doing is it's populating a table with the primary groups, so that first level of grouping. So you remember for the coordinates group, there were two subcategories. So again, for each of these, every time you see this split icon, you want to click it and make sure that the column is split properly. So the coordinates column should be split into longitude and latitude. And you'll see the data coming up. The weather data can be split. Okay. The main weather data, so the actual temperature, humidity, numerical values, again, let's split that. Wind data, cloud data, so whenabouts the data was recorded, and sunrise sunset times, and finally the precipitation data. Okay, so just double check that there aren't any more of those split icons anywhere. Nope. Okay, once that's done, this is effectively what your Excel table is going to look like. So you can close and load. It's taking a bit of time because there's quite a lot of data. Okay, so that is all of your data. Now, before you do anything else, it's a good idea to copy all the data. So to do that, you can click up here. Sorry, again, paste as value. And the reason why we're doing this is there's generally repeat variables of the same time period. So for example, here we have, so dt is the the Unix time of which the measurement was taken. So you see here, all of these are the same time periods. Sometimes if you call the API call quite often, then it will flip between giving you the latest data and giving you kind of the data immediately before it. This is kind of a trait in the server. But yeah, basically by searching for the repeats, the duplicates, and deleting them, this will automatically resolve all of those issues. So to do that, and I'm using control and the arrows to navigate around. So control and arrow left to go to the start. Shift, control and arrow right to go to the very end. And whilst I'm holding shift and control, arrow down to go to the very bottom of the data set. Just make sure it's selected all the data, which it has. So then under data, under the data tab, next to this text to column button, you'll see this remove duplicates button here. Now we have to select the column which contains the duplicates, so unselect all and go to the time dt. So you see there were 26,000 duplicates and it's removed them and we're left with 35,000 data points. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Some other points to note, some of these columns they won't be immediately obvious what they're talking about. So to quickly explain, temperature here is in degrees Kelvin. So to convert that into degrees Celsius, you need to minus 273.15. Let's have a look at what else we have. As I mentioned, dt is the Unix value. To convert that into an actual date and time, what we'll do first is create a couple of columns which we can put them in. Okay, now Google, if you quickly search Unix time in Excel, so that very first answer, the Stack Overflow answer, explains how to do it. So first of all, we want to split up that time into actual seconds. So again. Now we don't want A1, we want this cell. Again, here, we want that cell. And then we want to copy this second column down here. So, copy. Paste it in up here so we can edit it. It's not cell B1, it's that cell we just created. So what you can do is when you click on the new calculator cell, you can double click this box on the bottom right corner to copy it all the way down. Same for the column next to it. And then we'll duplicate that column, second column, insert. Okay, now select that one of those columns, right click and format the cells. So this column is going to be our date, so we'll select dates. And the second column, we can format the cell as a time. So that's how you can convert this Unix time into both date and time, and how you would convert the sunrise and the sunset time as well. Okay, for any other columns which don't appear immediately obvious, you can have a look through the OpenWeatherMap API. Under guides, there's a lot of detail of what each variable means and generally how to use OpenWeatherMap. Bear in mind that you only get a certain amount of free API calls. It's generally pretty sizable, but yeah, well, actually, if we go twice, then we can show. So you're allowed up to 60 calls per minute. So you're allowed to basically have 60 different weather stations. So you're allowed to, utilize this script for 60 different weather stations if you were to collect the data every minute, which is kind of overkill, but yeah. So that's how you can automatically download weather data for anywhere in the world. Obviously, for this to work, you need to have set up that Google script to be running before you want, well, for the time period which you want all of the data for. Okay.